Hello, my name is Carol Smith from North East Counselling Services. We are a counselling agency based in the North East of England, and we provide counselling for people across the country via Zoom or on telephone. We have around 50 counsellors, and what we do is match the counsellor to your needs. So if you explain to us a little bit about what you need from counselling, we can find the right counsellor from our group of counsellors for you. Today, though, I want to talk to you about improving your mental well-being if you're not feeling so great. Sometimes some of us don't realise that things that we do can have an impact on our mental well-being, and sometimes these are things that we don't even realise we're doing that having a negative impact. So I'd really like you to use this to get you thinking about other things that you are doing that are really unhelpful to you. First of all, I'd like to think about what is mental health. We talk about it all the time. Really, generally, when we're talking about it, we mean poor mental health. People have mental ill health. And actually, mental health's a spectrum, and we're all on that spectrum every single day. Sometimes we're towards the left-hand side of the spectrum where we've got poor mental health, and sometimes we're on the green end of the spectrum where we're feeling really positive and happy. And most of the time we'll move between the different grades of mental health. And especially at this time with the COVID-19, etc., probably more and more people are moving to the red end of the spectrum, and they may need professional support. What I would say is if your mental well-being is paralysing you from doing the things that you want to do and you're not having a great life, maybe you would like to examine some professional support. What's the impact of your mental well-being on your work? Well, we've all heard this figure, haven't we, that 1 in 4 people experience some form of mental health problem. And I'm not sure how true that is because, as you saw, we're all on a spectrum somewhere. What we do know is that if you're suffering from mental health problems, 48% of people find it hard to multitask. 85% of people find it difficult to concentrate. It's like opening your emails and thinking, what am I supposed to be doing? 64% find it takes longer to do tasks, and 37% of people who are suffering from mental ill health will get into conflict with colleagues. And one of the big things is 48% of people are less patient with customers. So reputation of an organisation can be really damaged by somebody who's feeling stressed, angry, depressed, whatever. So it does have a big impact on your work, and that can have a bigger impact on your mental well-being. Now you're going to say, oh, well, Carol's just here to sell us counselling. And I'm not, because not everybody needs counselling. I think of your mental well-being as like spaghetti, really. So when you get the spaghetti out of the packet, it's all nice and straight and hard. Then you put it into a pan of water, boiling water like your life, and then it gets all tangled up. And some of us can do a great job at untangling that spaghetti on our own. Some of us are really good at kind of breaking things down into small problems. And others have friends who can help with that, and they'll help you to see what things go where and what you can do to change and what things you can't change. Sometimes the spaghetti's just too angled. That's when you could do with some professional support. And if you can't see the wood for the trees and everything is just a mess in your head, then spending some time with somebody, talking to somebody who can help you just lay everything out and help you decide what things you need to do to move forward with your life. Because counsellors don't tell you what to do, they're not going to make decisions for you. And they'll help you to think about what is really going on and what you can change. The other thing we say is, I am who I am. I can't change my spots. That's the way I react to things. And we all say, don't we, I'm a leopard, I can't change my spots. But what if you could? I'm a leopard who's really changed my spots. I used to be a very, very black and white thinker. And to be honest, if people didn't agree with me, they were wrong or stupid. And now, because I did my counselling training, I can really see things from other people's point of view, and I start to think about who they are and why they've made decisions and things like that. And that's helped enormously in my communication with other people, the way I react to other people, and it has an impact on my mental well-being. Sometimes, though, we've got to think we need to change our spots. If you think about somebody who maybe went to work for the body shop because they like their ethics and non-animal testing policy and things like that, can you imagine how they felt when they got taken over by L'Oreal, who do a lot of animal testing on their products? So in that situation, the person might not have to change their spots. They'll be unhappy at work. Maybe they need to change the situation. And sometimes we try and fit ourselves into a round hole when we're a square peg, or vice versa, because we keep trying to change our spots when actually it's not the spots that need to change, it's the environment. And then what if it's other people who have the problem? Well, if you're waiting for somebody to change to be happy with your life, you're going to wait a really long time, because what we can't do is change other people. We can, though, change the way they react to us by recognising that we're doing something unhelpful and changing the way we talk to them. I'll talk about that later on. We can get into looking at the circular conversations we all have. So who you are does have an impact on your mental well-being, and recognising that sometimes you're doing things or acting in a certain way which isn't helpful can have a huge impact on your mental well-being and improve it. The other thing to think about is, how do I see myself? When I look in the mirror, who am I seeing? I love that little kitten. He's looking in the mirror and he can see that huge lion. And we probably all know people like this. It's like on the X Factor when, I don't know, people come out and they say to Simon Cowell, oh, my mum says I've got a great voice, when really they just can't sing at all. And that's like that kitten seeing the big lion. And it must be hard if you're like that, because you might think you're ready for this job or you should have this type of partner, when in reality, you're not going to get that. And the knockbacks you get will be really devastating for your mental well-being. And the other person, he's looking in the mirror and he can see somebody in a shirt and tie. And I actually worked for somebody like this. He was always comparing himself to the people he'd gone to university with, comparing their salary, oh, they're on more money than me. Yes, but they work in Geneva and you work in Middlesbrough. It's never going to be parity. And sometimes we strive for things and think we're a failure because we're not looking at the right things to be comparing ourselves against. So have a think about, you know, how do you feel in your life, and are you looking at something that you're never going to be able to achieve? Nothing wrong with having ambitions, but make them achievable. And then the other person with the little hole in his chest, sometimes we feel unhappy and we don't know why. And we forget to take some time to think about what we do want. Then we do the things that make us feel good, the coping strategies we have. We might drink too much, we might use drugs, we might go spend, we might gamble. And unless the things that you're doing are the shape of the hole, and that's never going to be full completely, and you're never going to feel complete. And it is worth, if you just feel happy and you don't know why, it is worth really taking the time to have a think about what it is you want from your life and how you want your life to be. And it might be that things have changed over the years and your priorities have changed and have become different. You're still acting as though you wanted the old priorities. Have a think about who you are and how you see yourself, and is it realistic, and are you aiming for things that you can achieve, or are you stretching the targets too far? Then we want to talk about, how do other people see us? There's a brilliant tool called a Johari window which helps you to think about how other people see you. And we all it's easier to put ourselves down, isn't it, than to listen to compliments and listen to how other people see us. But really, in order to be happy, one of the things we need to do is have a look at ourselves as though we're a window. And if you look at the top left hand area, the number 4, that's your open area. That's what you know about yourself and is known by others. Top right hand is number 3, the blind area. You don't know how other people see you, and it could be great. In the bottom area, the hidden area, the self-discovery, that's where you don't tell people about things you like and things you do and things like that, because you feel embarrassed or ashamed, or it would, it would change the impression people have of you. Things like, I don't tell people I love spreadsheets at work because they all think I'm strange. And then you've got this unknown area on the right hand side, the bit where you're doing some training and challenging yourself, and you're actually doing something that pushes your boundaries, and then you learn, oh my God, I've got that skill, it's great. So this system is really great to use, and it's great because it's so easy. And what we want to do is increase the size of the open area so that you know more about yourself and other people know more about you, and they can understand where you're coming from. There's a link in the handbook to a web page, and you go on there, and it's a tool where you can choose 6 positive words about yourself. And then you get a link at the end of that, which you send out to friends and family and colleagues, and they choose 6 positive words about you. And this is me. This is when I did mine. So people think I'm adaptable and energetic, independent, intelligent, responsive, which is great, and that's the kind of things I've thought about myself. But what was really interesting was when I looked at the blind spot, somebody said I was brave, and I thought, well, I'm not brave. I hate fires and spiders and things like that. Actually, the lady said to me that she thinks I'm brave because I'll come into work and say, shall we try this? If it doesn't work, it doesn't faze me. Well, that's funny. I don't see that as being brave. I see that as bloody-mindedness. But isn't it weird how people perceive you in a different way? Lots of people think I'm confident. Well, yes, I can go out and deliver a presentation. Actually, inside, they don't see the, oh my God, why are people listening to me moment. One that I come across as confident fills me with more confidence. Does that make sense? So have a look at your blind spot, and if the person's left name, have a think about asking them why they see you in that way. You might find something out about yourself that you didn't know at all. And then the unknown area, obviously that's the bit where you'll learn from different experiences to increase different aspects of your own life. So have a go at the Johari window, share it with family and friends and colleagues, and think about, do I act in one situation in a particular way that I don't act in another situation where I could transfer it over? So just have a think about how you are, how others see you, and how to build your confidence. One of the things we tend to do when we're not feeling great is we think everything's rubbish. And the next tool that I'm sharing with you is called a Wheel of Life. And what we want to do is have a look at what is good in our life. Because if we break our life down into these 8 different segments, actually, it can't all be bad. So, you can get this tool off the internet, and what you need to do is have a look at each of the different aspects of your life and score it from 0 to 10. And then you draw your graph. So this person's drawn a graph and everything's down at a 2. If you imagine this as a wheel, that's a lovely smooth wheel, so it roll down the road very easily. But actually, it's so small, you have to go really, really fast, like a hamster on a wheel. And this person, goodness me, they've got a really bumpy wheel. There's nothing smooth about it. It bumps down the road. And if you imagine that, it'd be like somebody driving a car upstairs. What you really want to do when you're doing this is do it with somebody who will challenge you. So they'll go through the different aspects with you and say, so why have you scored, I don't know, finance or work too? And you say, oh, well, I'm just not happy with it. If you think about your physical environment, if they said to you, why have you scored it a 2? What would a 10 look like? You say, well, I want a big house and a country with servants and swimming pools. How are you going to get it? I'm going to win the lottery. You do the lottery? No. So basically, you're to get to a 10 without the ability to get to a 10. And it's going back to the ambitions that we have, how we see ourselves, thinking about, we're saying every day, oh, I want that to be a 10. And actually it's never going to be, because the 10's not achievable. Can't see me, I am overweight. It'd be like me saying, oh, I'm never going to be happy until I'm 7 stone. I'm never going to be 7 stone. Even if I cut my head, arms and my legs off, I'll never be 7 stone. So I have to think about, can I readjust that 10? And it's great because there are some things that you can't change. You know, you might not be able to change your health, you might not be able to change your relationships, etc. But you can see the things that you can change and move them up. And what we want to aim to do is try and make the wheel as smooth and as big as possible. Does that make sense? You want it to be a nice smooth wheel, and if it is, then you can cope with 1 or 2 things below 5 or 4. I used this wheel when I used to work for a company which was a desk-based job, and I'd been a sales rep for 20 years, and I just wanted to sit in a desk and not travel. And after a couple of years of sitting at a desk, which was great, they had made the girl redundant who organised the international exhibitions, and they fell to me to do, and I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. So for me, work became a really low score. Work was a huge part of my life, and my mental health started to suffer because of it. I was really fortunate. I got to work with a life coach at the time, and she took me through this process. So we looked at all the different things, and you know, there are some things you can't change. But what I did was, I thought, well, personal growth, I could do something a bit different, get me out with some more people, you know, make that a part of my life. So I did lots of different training, Indian head massage, manicure and pedicure, reflexology, and then stumbled on counselling training. And if you looked at my graph or my wheel a few months later, when I'd started to recognise different things, you would see it's that green wheel. Work was still rubbish, work was still bad, but the rest of the wheel had increased in size. And if you imagine that as a wheel rolling down the road, it would be much smoother than it was before. And nothing else had changed apart from my attitude. And so doing this, you can see where the things are that are really low, and then you can think about, can you do something about it? If you imagine that wheel, you could probably cope with 2 or 3 things being low, things that you can't change, but it's smoothed out by the other aspects of your life that are as good as you want them to be. So I'd certainly recommend giving that a go. And in the handout that accompanies the presentation, there is a wheel of life. One of the other things we do as human beings is we keep falling into holes. There's a poem that a lot of counsellors use with clients, and it's about somebody who's walking down the street and they fall into a hole. It's not their fault because the council haven't done anything about it. They've just dug a hole and not put any signs up. And they manage to get out and continue off down the road. Next day they walk down the hole and they walk down the road and they fall into the same hole. And it's still not their fault because the council haven't been out. On the third day they walk down the road and they fall into the hole again. Now they're thinking, oh, hang on a minute, I'm doing something a little bit silly here. They manage to get out quicker. On the fourth day they walk around the hole, and on the fifth they go down a different road altogether. To me, sometimes that's what counselling does, or becoming aware of the processes you have. And you can spot people who have fallen into holes, or if you fall into holes, because these people will tend to say things like, oh, I'm just dead unlucky me. Why does it always happen to me? Why does it always happen? A number of years ago, I went to bereavement counselling after my mum died. And after a couple of sessions, the girl said to me, the counsellor said to me, it's not bereavement counselling you need, it's relationship counselling. And I was really stunned. And I said, why? And she said, because you keep marrying your mother. I'd only been married twice at that point. I would have known if I'd married my mum, you know. What she meant was, my mum was one of those people who were really, really, really critical, and nothing was ever good enough. 99% in a maths exam, where was the other 1%? Nothing was ever good enough. And so as a child, you learn that your parents love you. And as a child, the way they show you they care about you is the way you interpret that's how love is. And so as an adult, when I met men who were really, really critical of me, and I started to get into those relationships, and although there was a sensible part of my head saying, Carol, that's not right, it's not really healthy, the bit inside, the voice from childhood was saying, yes, but that's how people show you they love you. That's how they do it. Remember, your mum did it like that. And so recognizing that, recognizing the hole you're falling into is really, really important, because these things are generally unconscious. You don't realize you're doing them, you don't realize you're repeating these patterns. And now by making it conscious, you can really do something about it. It might not stop quickly, it didn't stop me falling into the same holes, but actually I recognized I was in one of those relationships much quicker and sooner. I've got a friend, he's a lovely fella. Whenever he meets a woman, she's going to turn out to be like a stalker. And he keeps saying to me, why does it always happen to me? And why am I so unlucky? Now, I bought him a book, I've highlighted the paragraphs, I know exactly what's happening for him. He is an avoidant attacher. He's learned from past experience that relationships hurt. And so his defense mechanism to that is to run away if somebody gets too close. And women he tends to pick are anxious attackers. They just fall into how he sees himself. He likes to rescue people, and they're anxious. And so when they're going out together, she starts saying things like, oh, do you want to meet my kids? Do you want to meet my family? Do you want to meet my dad? And his kind of inner self goes, oh my God, run for the hills. She's going to hurt you. You're getting too close. And because she's anxious, she follows him. And he runs further and faster, and she keeps chasing. And then it always ends up in a difficult situation. Now, if he recognised what he was doing, then he could stop doing that. He could recognise the signs. He could listen to the little voice that's saying, run for the hills, and say, no, I'm not going over this time. Because he doesn't recognise it yet, he's going to keep making the same mistakes. So have a think about, am I falling into holes? One of my friends fallen into holes, and actually can I help them see that they can stop it and they can do things differently. Another unconscious process we have is when we're stressed, anxious, depressed, our inner child comes out to play. And the way we acted as a child when we didn't get our own way is how we act as an adult. You'll see it all the time at work. So if somebody's feeling stressed or anxious, sometimes people throw things down on the desk and stomp out the room. Some people shout and scream. Some people just go off in a huff. Now, if you think about it, your inner child is very rarely welcome at work, because it creates bad feeling about people, doesn't it? Around people, it creates kind of things that are going on. And if you think about it, what we need to do is recognise that our inner child's coming out, and actually try to become the adult again and react in situations that are more adult, because what we don't want to do is cause conflict. So again, it's an unconscious process. My inner child used to slam doors and stamp off upstairs, and it's very hard now not to do it. My inner child slams kitchen doors and things like that. So have a think about, how are you reacting to situations? Is it your inner child coming out? And become aware of it, make it conscious, and then you can stop your inner child having an impact on your relationships with other people. And then, of course, linked to that, we've got an unconscious process linked to communication. So inside all of us, we've got 3 different ways of being. We can be an adult, we can be a parent, either critical or nurturing. We can be a child, either petulant or compliant. Now that's great, that's me. Everybody's got that. Now we're starting to see why conversations and communication is very difficult. And if you've had a discussion with somebody and it's turned into a great big argument or a shouting match, this is how it happens. So if you're going to communicate with somebody, it's best to be adult to adult. What happens often is one of us flips into parent mode, either critical or nurturing, and that flips the other person into child mode. Now, I don't know if you remember, but on my Johari's windows, people said I was very independent, and I am. And my husband is a very nurturing person. He holds my hand when I'm crossing the road. When I'm driving, he's stopped the car to get it. He's going, watch the road, there's cars coming. No, I've been driving for 20 odd years. And so his nurturing parent thinks I'm my petulant child, and I say those things to him that I've just said to you. And then what happens is his petulant child comes out and he says, I'm only showing I care, not like your other two husbands. And then we go into an argument. Now, while delivering this presentation once, I got this insight into myself and thought, oh my God, Carol, you're just flipping into petulant child. And that's making him flip into petulant child. So now when he does all those nurturing things, I can't say I stay an adult, but I certainly don't go down to petulant child. I just keep away from it as much as I possibly can, and then we don't have the argument anymore. Again, it's about your awareness of yourself, because he wouldn't go into petulant child if I hadn't gone into petulant child. Watch conversations and you can really surprise people by doing something different. Keep an eye on the state you're in. Are you staying in adult mode? Are you being a critical parent? Are you being an over nurturing parent? Because that might flip the other person into a child. So just watch out for it, and you can take control of the situation now. The thing to think about is, when you think about how we communicate, most of it comes from facial expressions and tone of voice, and the words that we say have very little to do with that. It's about 7%. So if you aren't matching how you say things with what you want to get across, the potential for the communication to go wrong is huge. I call it tell your face because I used to deliver parenting workshops for people who were separated, and a young lady came in one day and she said, I'm not coming into the course unless my mum can come with me. And I said, that's fine, bring her in. She sat through the whole 2-hour presentation with a hood up, scarf wrapped around her neck so tight I thought her head was going to fall off. And she had her arms crossed and her eyes just a lemon look on her face. And as she walked out, she said, that was really good, I really enjoyed it. And I'm thinking, tell your face, because I couldn't tell. And so if communication is going badly for you, think about how are you saying things to people? How are you getting your message across? If you say to somebody, that was a great job you did, would they really believe it? Would they think about, you really think they've done a great job? So keep thinking all the time about how you communicate and how are we getting things across. And it is very difficult these days when we're doing stuff on Zoom or Skype, because you can tell if somebody's typing away at an email or something like that. It's really easy to tell when people aren't with you in the room. So communication is really important. And then, of course, linked to that, we've got, do we actually listen to people? Most people think, oh, I've got my mouth shut, so I'm listening. When actually, really, we're thinking in our head, oh, I wonder what I can have for dinner tonight. Oh, shall we go to the pub for a drink? And we're not actually listening to what that other person's saying. If you think about it, if only 7% of what they're telling you comes from the word, you actually watching them. If somebody went, oh yeah, I'm great, would you think they were great? Would you think they were happy? Would you call them out on it? Check out what they're saying to you. And that's what active listening is. And it's a skill to acquire, to actually listen to people and pick up on the body language, and does it match the words? Does their tone of voice match the words too? So communication goes both ways. And sometimes we have the conversations in our head, don't we? You know, if you're taking something back to the shop, you've already decided that they're not going to take it back, and you've had the argument 50 times. So by the time you go in there, you've got white knuckles, you're really mad. And if they say to you, oh, no, that's absolutely fine, we've had lots of problems with this, then taken aback, aren't you? And the conversations you have in your head can get out of control, and they can make you things that are going to happen and cause anxieties and panic attacks and things like that. So yes, while it's normal to have conversations in your head, if they're getting out of hand and if they're having an impact on your life, and now's the time to do something about it. And cognitive behavioural therapy is a great tool to help you recognise those conversations and recognise when they're not right, and how to stop them. I met one young lady who said to me that she has a panic attack if somebody asks her to go to a meeting in their office. If a manager asks her for a meeting, she'd had a bad experience once, and every time since she'd escalated it out of control, so that it caused a panic attack. So watch the conversations you're having. If they're making you ill, now you can do something about it. And we get into circular discussions, don't we? And sometimes what we say is very rarely the crux of the matter. So, your discussion always goes, you always do that. No, I don't. Yes, you do. No, I don't. Actually, if you can recognise that you're in circular discussions with somebody, this is where you can change their reaction to you by changing what you do. You can't change them. Now you can do something a little different. So if they say, you always do that, you could say, can you tell me when I last did it so that I can have a think about it, because I didn't mean to upset you. Now they can't come back and say, yes, you do. They've got to say something different, and now you've got a different conversation going on and finding out what's actually happening in that situation. So have a think about in circular discussions with somebody. Am I putting words into their head? Am I making assumptions that the other person doesn't even have? You might be putting a meaning on what they do that isn't even there of. Similarly, they might be doing that to you, and getting the discussion down into something a little deeper will then stop the argument and change the way the discussion goes. So have a think about, am I in circular discussions? And we do get stuck in our way of thinking. I mentioned I was a very black and white thinker in the past, and really I could only see the 6. I wouldn't have been able to see the 9. And lots of us get kind of caught in that way of thinking, don't we? We think our way is definitely right. And if you're in this situation, talk to the person who you're opposed to and try to understand why they see things the way they do. We've all got our own rules that we live our life by. Actually, are they helpful rules, or are they rules that are right? Are they getting us what we want in life? And actually getting stuck thinking about your way is the right way is the route to disaster, really, because it'll cause all sorts of problems. And actually, you might not be right. So try to see things from other people's point of view. That really, really helped my mental well-being, because now I can understand that people aren't being nasty to me or being awful to me for a reason. I've tried to understand their viewpoint and understand what they're saying to me. And then if you think about it, sometimes we try to force a resolution onto some situation that isn't really there. We're told from a very young age that you have to compromise. Compromise is everything. When actually, if you think about what compromise is, it's the overlap between what you want and what the other person wants. And that's sometimes so small, or actually not even there. What you want and what they want is very different. If you think of an example like a couple where one person desperately wants to have a baby and the other person desperately doesn't, where's the compromise in that situation? You can't say, we'll have half a baby, and if it doesn't work, we'll send it back. And if you go on to have a baby, the person who didn't want one's going to feel resentful. And if you do have a if you don't have a baby, the one who wanted one's going to be resentful. There's no compromise in that situation. And this is where sometimes we try to squeeze ourselves into as a square peg into a round hole. You know, if work has changed so dramatically that it goes against your ethos and values and things, or if you just really don't like it, sometimes we sit there and say, if it would just change back, well, it's not going to. And sometimes what we need to do is accept that there is no compromise, there is no resolution. And for the benefit of our mental well-being, we have to make difficult decisions. Sometimes it's easier to make the difficult decision earlier rather than let the situation fester and destroy our mental well-being. So if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch by email or Facebook or something like that. And I'd really love to hear from you. The handbook is on the website too, which has got everything written down. And if you'd like to see the presentation live online, or you'd want me to come out and speak to you, then that's great. But please feel free to keep asking questions and keep thinking about yourself, and hopefully you'll be able to improve your mental well-being.